Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cafecito. I'm your host, Christiana. As you all know, the Cafecito is about everyday people doing extraordinary things. And I'm excited about the guest that we have today. Before we jump into that, just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, We The Plug. You all know We The Plug is an online platform that works with founders, investors, as well as those in the tech space to connect them with other community so that they're able to expand their network as well as put their business, if they should have one, on the scale to success. If you want to learn more about We The Plug, focusing on Pan-African and Latinx founders, investors, and tech, you can find us on the website at WeThePlug, THA, not THE.com. So today, I am so honored to have a mastermind on the show today. I was privileged to learn of him through a very dear friend of mine. And I saw some of his work and was moved to, it actually moved me to require more of myself, require more of the people in my space. And that hasn't happened to me in a long time, watching an actual film. And so I reached out and was able to have an opportunity to have him on the Cafecito today. So without further ado, Amir, thank you so much for being on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well. So Amir, can you introduce yourself and who you are? What is it that you do in this world?
Yeah, so primarily as far as an artist, I'm a poet and a writer. And so I write poetry and I write for television. I write and produce the Ramy show on HULU, and write for film, and write fiction, nonfiction. At the heart, I'm a writer, but the seed of all of that is really poetry. That's really where I'm at home, and I've been writing poetry really since I was a kid. Writing it so long that when I used to write it as a kid, I thought everyone was writing poetry. Like you go to school, you come home, you play football, you play with Transformers, and you write poetry. So I thought it wasn't until later that I found out that everybody wasn't at home writing poetry. And so, but it's something that came very natural to me. I don't remember the moment of like, oh, I'm going to be a poet. And of course, I was heavily influenced in that way by hip hop culture. And so the great poets that I knew and that I looked up to were these, great giants like, KRS-One and Chuck D, very especially Black Thought of the Roots at that time, Nas at that time, and Lauryn Hill, huge, huge effects on me. And when I would hear their music, particularly the lyricism, I would just be amazed. It was like magic. It's kind of like actually what you just said, where I was like, I would listen to the words and I would feel something. And it's like, how do they just make words, make pictures appear in my mind and a feeling appear in my heart? And it's like, this is like magic, And so I was like, man, I want to try, And so that's what really started me out. And so now with a new project we have called Laying Flowers, Setting Fires, also directing, adding that to what I do as a form of expression. And it's been great because it's like one more dimension, one more platform, or one more way for me to get what's inside of myself outside of myself, and express it into the world. And so, poetry, obviously, with language. And then when I started to recite my poetry, that was a little later. That was like at 14 years old. It's the first time I went to like an open mic, and I started to recite my words. So that was like another dimension. It was like writing the words and then saying the words. And it was like, oh, okay, this is like different, because with my voice, I can express some things that I couldn't just with the written word. And then now also with directing, it's like I can use color and sound and composition and different things. So it's been an evolution. Yeah.
You know, in hearing the journey to where you are now and you sharing something, it just cracks me up, because you said at the age of 10, you thought everyone was writing poetry and playing just like you. And I think the awe of what childhood does for us when we're left to be our creative self is just that, is allow us to flow limitlessly and express ourselves in a way that kind of navigates the direction we're going to go into as we are maturing, from childhood to young, older adult, or older childhood to adulthood. But was family able to help cultivate that? I think oftentimes with children, sometimes they're dismissed from work that makes them creative because there's other things that adults think they should be doing. So
Yeah.
was their family, was there support around your creativity, encouragement within your family unit that helped?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. Actually, I'm really grateful. My mother and my father, um, more than like encouraging me, it's not that they would just praise me all the time for the work that I would do. They would just not get in the way of it. You know what I mean? Which is, I think, really interesting, because like as an artist, you need the space. You need the space to be critical of yourself. So it's not necessarily, and I try to employ this with my children now, but not to so much always be like, oh, great job and great job and great job and great job. Because if the person has become a serious artist, there's gonna be a level of dissatisfaction in what they do, so that they can grow. There's gonna be a level of, I haven't really perfected this technique, or I didn't really find the word that I meant to do this, or this isn't as good as it should be. So that dissatisfaction is what drives excellence. And so you don't want to just delete that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you don't want them to be so overly critical of themselves, where they get down on themselves, and then that can be paralyzing, So the big thing is just, what I'm trying to do with my children, and basically what my mother did with me, is just give room to work. And just, if we're to congratulate anything, just congratulating the effort, the engagement, and so, my mother didn't necessarily make me feel particularly special. That's what I'm saying. I didn't even know it was special. Didn't make me feel particularly special in it. Nor did she like, oh, you need to do something else with your life. Because by the time I was in my 20s, by then I was already married and had 3 kids and everything. And that's when I decided to do poetry for a living exclusively. You know what I mean? So I quit my job to do poetry, which everyone knows poetry is not a booming industry. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, there's no Fortune 500 poetry organizations or companies or anything like that. So I was really going to have to make my own way, and there wasn't a way in front of me, And my mother's concerned, I'm her son, and I'm married, and I have her grandchildren, and I mean, like, how are you gonna, where, but alhamdulillah, praise to God, that was 2004, and every year I'm doing better than I was the last year, and take care of everybody. Kids are in college, and everybody's sane and living indoors. So, so we're grateful to God for that. So yeah, so I definitely had to support him, and when I talking about family, my older brother and younger brother we're working together always. So, for example, in the Laying Flowers, Setting Fires, which you saw the film, my younger brother is a creative director and editor for the project. My older brother is a set designer. So when you see the police car and you see, you know, all those sets, he's the one who built all those sets. And so, you know, this business has always been a family business for us, you know, and my younger brother, Mikhail, and my older brother, Keem, have been there in different capacities from 2004 up until now. So that's a thing that makes my mother and my father very happy when they see, you know, there's three of us, there are three sons, you know, working together and creating meaningful, imaginative, original,
Yeah.
important work and putting it into the world. So
Purposeful.
they're, yeah, purposeful, that's it. So they've been supportive then, and now they're supportive and very inspired and happy now to see what their sons are doing. Yeah.
You know, you said something so crucial right there when you said your parents did not just give compliments. They left room for your creativity to grow. They held space for it, and I think, you know, that is one of the most profound things that a parent or anyone who's involved with children. You know, I'm not a parent myself, but I have nieces and nephews and godkids, and holding space for their creativity or just them sharing their narrative, letting you, you know, deciding how it's going to unfold with you, supporting them along the way, I think is such a great gift. So I appreciate you sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about as you were moving through this and you're building, you said, you know, we the plug, we work with founders, and founders like yourselves, even though you're in the film industry, you're still a founder, right? This is your company you're building with your brothers. And the hardship and the challenges when you first started out with it, to your point, you know, poetry doesn't pay the bills in a way that you really need them to do, but that was the creative outlet, one of them, because there's many that you possess. So how did you navigate through that in trusting in the gift and that you have been blessed with, but still having to maintain the responsibilities as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, it was no joke because, like, for me getting into television and film, as far as projects that have actually come out, projects that actually like produce some income and whatnot, this is only in the last 24 months. So we're talking from 2004 when I decided I'm going to do poetry for a living, up literally till, you know, maybe 18 months ago, working on the Ramy show. Well, a little more than that, working on the Ramy show, and then this film project. There's other things that we worked on, like pilots and for television series and things like that, which I'll mention one of them in a moment. But those things didn't go, so they didn't get off the ground yet. So we were creating, you know, poetry, live performances, then poetry like albums, things like that, and then the idea to go into the multimedia space, the television space was, this must have been about 2000 and maybe 2014, maybe, where started the media company, True and Living Media. So actually from then until now, if I'm not mistaken, this film is the first thing that actually came out to the public from True and Living Media. Yeah, like that. So just in brief, to give a picture of the journey, because at the beginning I wasn't interested in doing, I was a fan of filmmaking, but it wasn't like in 2004, I was like, I'm gonna make films, and it took me all the way now to make films. It wasn't like that. So what I wanted to do was to do poetry. That's what I was passionate about, and that's what I was very good at. So then I just started doing gigs. I just started doing shows, poetry show here, poetry here, a festival here, a club there, so on. And I would go on the road, kind of like a comedian, you know, and to go and do, get on the circuit and just do gigs. Sometimes I'm doing a gig for $100. Sometimes I'm you know, and I have my CDs with me and I'm selling my CDs and, you know, I had to do X amount in order to make rent, in order to get gas to the next place. And, you know, it's really, you know, it was no joke, you know, it was no joke. And like I said, and I wasn't doing it as a single person. I'm married, I have 3 kids, and, you know, so the stakes were high. So from that to then doing more like organizations and college gigs, which would pay better. So I would do Harvard and Yale and, you know, Brown and you know, Morehouse and Clark Atlanta, and, you know, and I was going all around the country and I paid a little more. Then I got a Def Poetry Jam. So this was,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was on Def Poetry Jam for 2 seasons. And that's when the international market opened up to me. And so then I was going to, I mean, I've done poetry, invited to do poetry in, you know, Sweden, Belgium, England, Australia, Senegal, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, you know, yeah, I mean, I could just list off a dozen countries or more where I went and did poetry. So then, so it started to grow into a, you know, a career, you know, and I was paying my bills and paying for private school and, you know, rent and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the key of what you were saying as far as being a founder, and particularly the way I was doing it, in a way it was modeled kind of after of a comedian's career, because the reason I can't make myself akin to
It's little technical difficulties there.
it.
There we go.
Am I freezing
Yep,
up?
now I can see you. Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay. So I was saying I'm modeling a little after a comedian's career, because the comedian is just a person and a mic in the audience, and that's it. There's no you know, producers or music or dancers or background singers or anything, you know. And but the thing is, for comedians, it's like they would do what I was doing, and oftentimes we'd be in the same clubs. The same comics and poets often would have mixed events. But then a comic would get on TV, so like on a Fallon show or something like that. And then from there, if they did well, they could get a television show or a special, then a television show like a sitcom, and then a movie, and then you're a star. Like there's a ladder that you can climb, or as a rapper or something, there's a ladder. For poets, there was like the poetry scene, the clubs, then Def Poetry Jam, and then like that was it. There wasn't a
ceiling.
You know. So now, like for example, we're making this film, Laying Flowers, Setting Fires, is putting poetry in a different medium, presenting it in a different way. And so as far as being a founder and having to trailblaze and trying to and making a way where there hasn't been a way, you know, it takes a certain belief, you know, and a certain you know, resilience and a certain just grit as well, just to, you know, to make it happen. But it's very rewarding for us because it's what we love to do.
And, you know, some of the things that you spoke about really hits home for me. And it's kind of like that faith and work. You got to have both. You have to trust the process and believe that you're on the right track and it's going to yield the results that you're seeking. But you got to keep your eye facing forward on the prize. And so it's like each day, it's like you're building. I think that's great advice, I think, for those as well who are looking to get into this space, to understand that there's no direct ladder. You got to kind of make your own pathway. But I love that you took a blueprint that was similar to yours to help you build off of. I think that's extremely crucial. Let's talk a little bit about how you were able to break into the film industry. So as you're expanding your reach across the waters and moving internationally, and okay, things are going, how do you then move into that film space? How does that transition happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the first shows that I wanted to do is actually a travel show, because I was traveling around and moving around the world as a Black man, Black American man, Black Muslim American man, and just a unique experience that it is. And so that was one of the first things I was like, man, if I could bring a camera around with me, this could be an interesting program. It would be something I would want to watch. And I've always been a fan of just film cinema. Always, just since I was young, it's my favorite pastime is to watch movies. And so I was always, so this was a just general interest that I had. Working on the Ramy show on HULU, this was a consequence of some good brothers of mine. One is Mo Amir, who's a comedian. Mo Amir, he has a special on Netflix called Vagabond, but he's a friend of mine going back, 15 years or something like that. And we crossed paths in the Bay Area when he was on his way to LA down for the Ramy show, him and my other good brother, Azhar Usman. And so we hung out a little bit. And then they went, wow, this is actually funny. So they went down and they, the next day were talking to Ramy, and I was still kind of fresh on their minds. And they had mentioned me, and he was like, oh, Amir Sulaiman, you think he'll come down to consult, because we're doing something on the second season of Ramy that we would love his input on, just as as an advisor, a consultant on a particular character of the show, who's this Black Muslim Sufi American character. And so,
we froze again. These things happen, people, but we're going to get through it. This is a great story. So important to look at kind of like laying the bricks of where life takes you. And there we go. We're back. Hey, yeah, okay. Keep going.
All right. So, what was I saying? So, he was seeing if I could consult. Mm-hmm. So the reason I was fresh on Ramy's mind was because a few nights before, he was at dinner with Mahershala Ali, who was going to play this character on. And so Mahershala knows me from Oakland, in the poetry scene in Oakland, because Mahershala was an MC back in Oakland before he was known as an actor. He was doing, so we had crossed paths 20 years ago, whatever. So at dinner, he's like, yo, you know who you should think about this role? You should think about this guy, Amir, so-and-so. So Ramy heard it from Mahershala, and then heard it from my guys, Mo Amir and Azhar Usman. And so I ended up coming down to consult for a day. It was just supposed to be a job for a day. Then it was 2 days. Then it was like 3 days. Can you stay for next week? And then what about writing this episode? And then I'm on set. And then, it was like, it snowballed into, me being a writer and producer on the show. And so that entered me in a different way into, film and television. And then I had this vision of doing this. I was thinking of what's like, poetry expanded. So, a comic has a set and then they have a special, And so I was like, what does a poetry special look like? And that's when I started playing around with the idea of laying flowers, where a collection of poems are made into a story, And so it's somewhere between, a poem and a film. It's not quite a short film, but it's not quite just a poem. And so it's, again, creating a new genre, but it is from my poetry, from me doing what I love, that brought me into the film and television world. From Mahershala, some gig the gigs actually that he saw me, I didn't even get paid for, actually. I remember there was one joint that we did for the Hip Hop Chess Federation, and then another one we did on Lake Show, which was just at a cafe open mic type thing that used to be really, really hot in Oakland. It was really a beautiful set. But that's how it happened.
There was so much to unpack right there. First thing first, though, is that you never know who you're going to cross paths with again from your past. And so it's always good to have that integrity, that honor, hopefully that's just the authentic part of who, you are as a person. And obviously that is who you are. So all these years later, it was able to come back around and now help to propel your career to the next level. The other thing that you were just mentioning is being, that I heard, is being open. You was open to the opportunity, right, to consult. You were there for a day, and then it extended, and before you knew it, you know, you're moving to like a payroll position, if you will. You know, so that's my takeaway there is, you know, be open. And then the last part that you just hit me with right now that I wasn't expecting is this gig wasn't even a paid gig. I think, you know, again, when you're building out your, whether it's your career, whether it's a business that you're starting, whatever it is, sometimes opportunities will present itself and it won't always be packaged in the way that we would like it to, either paid or, you know, with the flashing lights, whatever it is, right? But that's when you have to trust, to believe that it is going to be a blessing in that moment, because you don't even know what's going to come from it. You just are showing up today, being your best self, giving your all, and then, you know, going from there. And so that is something that I think is really important for us to pay attention to. I want to move now into laying flowers. I've mentioned it, you've mentioned it throughout this our conversation, and you know, at the end, you all will have an opportunity to actually watch the full piece. I didn't want to introduce it in between our talk because it deserves the breadth of watching it. You need to sit and watch the entirety of the film. For me, I see it as visual art. So when you were talking about poetry and what would it look like in different segments to kind of let it unfold, you know, I was telling my friend that brought me to you that it was, I felt like I was in the museum and you were painting, you and your crew, your brothers, or you all were painting, and I got to watch you take a brush and stroke with your words this beautiful imagery that came to life, that at times provoked sadness, that provoked joy, that provoked peace, all these different emotions, right? And then it shifted from that to me sitting and watching a symphony. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just the music, it was like I was watching you write the notes of a symphony. Like when I say, you know, it was drawing out emotions from me and calling me to action. It was because all these different experiences was happening for me simultaneously, which again, it's been a while since I've been able to sit and had that emotion, not that exact type of emotion, but emotion come out of me in such a way that propelled me to do something in my life. So, you know, talk to us about, you know, what's the concept of laying flowers for those that have not seen it. Again, you guys will get to watch it at the end. Stay tuned. But what is laying flowers about? How did it come to life? And
so laying flower, we call it for short laying flowers, but it's laying flowers, setting fires. And the reason I'm making that distinction is because the laying flowers part is about, you know, mourning, you know, about grieving, you know, and laying flowers at a grave, so to speak, you know. And setting fires is active, you know, and explosive. And what the feeling, what I was seeking to capture is that, you know, ourselves as Black people in America, there's a certain, you know, it's just a weariness, you know, that can really descend on a person from watching yourself, people that look like you, your mother, your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle being killed in front of everyone, you know, and once and twice and 3 times and 4 times. And there can be like anger, or there can be concern, or there can be fear, or there can be terror, or these other emotions. But then those emotions kind of plateau out in just this kind of tired, you know, just this, I can't look at another video. I can't watch another murder. Like I just, and so, however, I don't want us, none of us want to, but in the piece, I didn't want to end there. And sometimes as artists, as Black artists, we'll capture that emotion because it's so accessible. It's so visceral. We all feel it, but may stop there. And so it's just kind of a blues for our blues. And then it can kind of create like just a cycle of suffering and expression of suffering that, you know, like sometimes you'll hear people be like, when I'm sad, I like to listen to sad music that makes me more sad. And somehow it's gratifying in a weird way. I know we have I know that can be very comfortable, but I don't want us to live in that low vibration. So, but I don't want to ignore it. I don't want to act like, oh, it's not going on, you know, positive vibes only, you know, transcend it with, you know, energy and crystals and stuff like that. Like, I'm not trying to pretend that it's not real, you know what I mean? So the laying flowers is signifying and identifying that. And then the setting fires is the other part, which is imagining ourselves being victorious. You know, I was watching an interview, I believe it was on the Breakfast Club, and I believe it was Wesley Muhammad. I hope I'm not goofing that up. But he was talking about how seeing yourself lose over and over again actually decreases hormonally, like testosterone in men or women, but I'm just saying that it increases the competitive drive in the brain. So like, for example, a basketball team, once they go on a losing streak, it's very hard to get out of it. But being on a winning streak is easier to maintain because you're in that high expectation of yourself and you're expecting victory, and it causes you to perform differently. That's why it's so amazing when a team comes back, because that means they had to do something really powerfully, mentally, in order to see themselves losing and then, you know, come back. And so what I wanted to also make an image of is an image of victory, an image of what would it look like? You know what I mean? And you know, without going too much into the actual film itself and the sequence of the film, laying flowers, setting fires, and and it's good to watch I'm glad you actually having them watch the whole piece in its entirety. And it's less than 20 minutes, so it's not you know, a full like 2-hour endeavor for any of your audience who wants to watch it immediately. But that the story is going as one would expect, and there's a moment of expectation when he comes to the front door, right? When he comes to the front door, and then there's a program that we have about what happens at that moment.
Right.
He loses, you know what I mean? Even if we like paint his face on the wall and whatever, we make him a hero, whatever. But the point is, at that moment of confrontation, you lose. And I was like, as an artist, we're visionaries. We can make something real that isn't real yet, you know, but to allow images that allow us to imagine for something different. And so that's why the next shot after that is the imagination of something different, you know what I mean? A piece of art, an image. And I remember when I was, some of the images, I was like, I want this image to be as iconic and to stick into people's minds the way like Huey P sitting in the wicker chair with the spear and the where it like just sticks in the mind, and you always remember that, or even some things that are from fiction, whether it's Black Panther, like the film Black Panther, or other things where it's just like, I have this image and it's a powerful image and meaningful image and an image of victory, you know, and triumph, you know. And so the way that it actually started out, the poem itself, and when you were saying the image and the art, that we had a dope, man, my good brother and cinematographer, Michael Cambio Fernandez, who also is a DP on the cinematographer on Beyonce's Black is King, and also on The Burial of Kojo, the film from the great Ghanaian director Blitz the Ambassador. And so he's a friend of mine, and he's obviously incredibly talented. And having him there to help me, paint, actual paint the picture, literally, as far as light and color and shape and lens and, all of that stuff, positioning the camera and how the camera is moving and how the camera is gazing on each face and, all of that. And he was the one to really help me to allow to bring that vision, onto the screen. But when I was first writing it, I was imagining myself sitting on the bed of Breonna Taylor writing a poem. That was actually the original thought. And that's why it starts off like, she wants a new poem. I want a new poem too, but it's hard to write new words for old things. It's like trying to buy a new suit for a dead man. It's like, I don't know what to say. That's essentially what it meant. It was like, I don't know what new thing to say. Like, what else? Like, how many times, And so what else is there to say, It felt almost inappropriate to write a poem. Am I just gonna just keep writing these new poems, like buying new suits for a dead man, or sewing a new dress for a dead woman, or finding a new plot for a shallow grave, as I mentioned in the piece. But I just allowed myself to experience that feeling totally. And so I started writing about how I don't know what to write, and why I don't know what to write, and why this feels redundant to me, but through going through that process, something new, emerged. And so as I was writing these images, because it didn't start out like, I'm gonna write this film. It started out just as this poem, but as I'm writing this poem, these images I'm seeing things, and I'm like, man, maybe I could shoot this and I can show what I'm seeing in my mind, for other people to see. And one more thing about the process is, I was doing a kind of an experiment on Instagram called 1111 live writing sessions. So what I would do is I would get on IG Live and I would write poetry live in a Google Doc. And I would give people access to the Google Doc so they could actually watch the poem being born in the moment that it's being born. And the reason I was doing that is because I was reflecting on manuscripts and how we don't have manuscripts like we used to, because we don't work in paper as much anymore. So like, you can go into the museum and see, Alex Haley's manuscripts for the autobiography of Malcolm X, and him crossing things out and circling things and, editing on the manuscript. And I was like, because we work in Google Docs and stuff like that all the time, we're not gonna have those anymore, But then I thought, like, I wonder, by way of technology, is there a way to do that even more, I was like, I would love to be sitting in the room, or if there was a camera set up in the room when Toni Morrison was writing,
Blue is Eye.
Yeah, Blue is Eye.
Wait, did she write the Blue is Eye? Or did she?
Yeah, that was Toni. Toni Morrison.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if I was there, literally as the words were appearing to her mind, and she's actually writing a thing, I mean, there would be no amount of money that I would spend. I would sell my house to just watch her
write
the whole thing. So
Right.
I did an experiment for 90 days that every night at 11 p.m. I would get online and I would give access people to the doc, and I would actually write the poetry, and I'm kind of mumbling and talking, and and it was this process. So the poems in the film are produced from those sessions. So because during that time was the time of the George Floyd protest, and so when I would sit down to write, that stuff was in my head, and so I was writing that stuff out. And so so there's obviously hours of footage of these sessions, but I'm sure I can find like when those actual words were actually born, when those words first came, and they're moved around, like, some lines are cut out because they just weren't good, or
Right.
I moved this part here, or I made changes, but all of that, the poetry from it, are from the 1111 writing sessions. And I think I'm going to start those back up. I was thinking about it last night. I think I'm going to do they're hard to do. They're really difficult because it's like having people watch you in that moment. Because, you know, I'm known as a poet, but it's not like everything I write is dope. Like, you know, the point is you got to write a lot of bad stuff to get to the good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, people are going to come on here like, oh, I'm going to follow the master poet in his journey. Be like, yo, this is trash. Son. Like, yo,
what a gift though. But what a gift, because it goes back to what you talked about in the beginning when you were that child given the space to allow yourself to grow and manifest. And this is what I'm talking about is everyday people doing extraordinary things. This is why I do this show. I want people to see you're still building. It's still manifesting. And what a great gift to be able to peek in, to hear and see what it's like as it's being built.
Yeah.
And you're doing that with your poetry that, hey, it don't come out. That final piece that is delivered, it went through all these different edits to get here. And I think what that does, Amir, and it makes me emotional just saying it because someone said this to me years ago, is when you are, and they were trying to help me not work out of that perfectionist type of ideology that I was so much valuing, is when you're vulnerable in front of me, it gives me permission to do the same thing. And what a great gift to be able to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm working on. I'm going to get there. Do you want to follow me as I'm getting to the promised land, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's a beautiful gift. Man, to hear how this whole process unfolded, even right now, when you're talking about sitting on the edge of Breonna Taylor's bed and writing this, I got emotional because that hit home. You know, she looks like my sister. She shared the same birthday month as my sister. She was close in age to my sister, you know, and it's like, I'm looking like that could be, you know, every time something like this happens, we immediately are able to, unfortunately, transfer a family member or a friend, at minimum a friend, but usually it's a family member, into the pain that we're seeing pushed out across the screen. And I think the reason why playing flowers, setting fires was so provoking to me is for what you said. It was about mourning, but there was also, you let me exhale, even though there were times I was holding my breath, I got to breathe. And then I felt empowered. And like I said, it left me with a call to action. It didn't leave me hopeless. It didn't leave me thinking, well, somebody else, you know, is going to have to, you know, fix this problem. It's like, no, there's something I can do. I can take, you know, control of those actionable ways to help make the situation better.
Yeah. If I could mention actually one more thing about it, you just reminded me of the thing that I really wanted to make central. And when you were talking about, you know, there's those moments of tension and those moments of expanse, you know, and I wanted it to be kind of a beating heart. So to constrict the heart and then expand it, and then constrict it and expand it, and constrict and expand it. But the expansion was that I wanted to center love in the conversation, you know, that sometimes when we're doing like activist work and things like that, we kind of forget that it has to be just because we love each other. You know what I mean? And so, you know, the parts that are in the field and the women, and having the, you know, the main character, reflecting back and forth is that what's driving him and what's empowering him, you know, is like his love for this woman, but really it's his love for women in general. And he is representing, and I told him on set, it's like, listen, I'm investing in you, all of Black masculinity. So all of your ancestors and all of your descendants, I'm putting in your body. You know what I mean? That's who you are. You know, and the sister, I told the same thing. The wonderful sister Deborah, and my good brother, you know, Alphonse, who played the lead character. You know, and I said to him, and I said to her, you know, you're carrying all of Black femininity. And, you know, I don't need to tell you the type of active disruption that we've had, and not just for nothing or out of nowhere, but planned dysfunction that's been placed between us, and to, you know, keep us at odds, because there can't be a base if we're at odds. And so I said, you know, you are all Black, you're all of your uncles, all of your grandparents, you're my grandfather, you're me, you're my sons, you're my nephews, you're everyone. And this sister, you're my mother, you're my sister, you're my wife, you're all of us is in your body, in this piece, in this world that we're creating.
Right.
And the love that I need you, the brother, to invest in this sister, this is really the more than it's a police, this and that, like at the root, it's a love poem. At its root, it's a love poem, you know?
Yes.
And from that is where the triumph comes from. And from that is where the hope comes from. And from that, even the action items, that, you know, what I would want people to do is be like, let me gaze at my sister in love. That would be the first thing.
Yes.
And then there'll be other things, and we'll have this, and we'll change this law, and we'll go to this, and we'll vote for that, and blah, blah, blah. That's all real, and that's all real. I'm not discounting it. Right. But where we have to start, me to gaze at my mother, at my sister, at my wife, with a deeper sense of love.
Yes.
So if someone says, I saw this movie and I looked at my husband, or I looked at my son, or I looked at my mother, or I looked at the sister in the street, or I looked at the brother in the street, or I looked at this one and I felt a deeper love, then I would say we've won. This piece has been, this is successful. That's the affair. Love is the affair. It's what this is all about and what it's all for. And by way of love and truth, not just goofy romantic love, but by way of true love, then the victory is ours. For sure, the victory is ours. And if even the political work causes us not to love, then we've lost. Even if we win, we change, we vote this person, we do this, we do that. But through that, the families have been ripped apart, the love has been stripped out of the hearts, then we won an empty prize. You know, we won a worthless trophy. There's no victory. So it starts with love, and the victory is love. And that's the central idea in laying flowers, setting fires. Yeah.
Listen, y'all, he took us to church, bought us back, sat us down, gave us some medicine, served us up. When you talked about, I got emotional when you were talking about the love piece, because that's what it was. It was like recognizing that it is that agape love, that it has nothing to do with the physical, and have everything to do about, I see you. You are my family. If I see a Black man, you are my family. I see a Black woman, you are my family. The way I look at my own family, the way I'm present with my own family, the way I prioritize when they say to me, you make me feel this way when you speak this way to me, or I received your message this way and it hurt me. In that moment, there's the opportunity to acquiesce and say, let me think about this and let me see how I can remedy this, because my intent is not to hurt and harm. I am beyond grateful for you producing this work and allowing us to have access to it. What is the next project that you are working on, that, you know, you already shared the call to action, which is love one another, see one another, first each other, and love, just be present. How can people stay connected to you, and what are some new projects that are coming out that we can onboard and support?
Yeah, so there's the way to stay connected is Instagram, which is just my first and last name, and any I'm sure my name will be somewhere.
Yes, all of the contact information for you guys. Yes, it'll be below. Yeah.
And surely I'll announce any new projects, but working on the next season of Ramy, and looking to push this kind of genre of filmmaking more. So I'm already working on the next one, which is very different, about a different subject and so on. But I want to explore this idea of cinematic poetry and and see what else is there, and open a door for other people, poets or directors that have a propensity for poetry, or poets who have a propensity for directing, to have other people in the genre to just explore it and see what's there. And so soon come, God willing, there'll be more of these. And so yeah, so people just to stay tuned. And I'm very grateful to you for having me here today, and the work that you do with We the Plug, and facilitating spaces for people who are on this very strange journey of being a founder, being a creative, being an entrepreneur, and this and to help to give us space to talk about it, which is gratifying for ourselves and the work that we do, but also for people who are looking at people like us, and to give them an insight into the highs and lows, and the victories and challenges that come along with it. So I appreciate you very much. God bless you. I pray that God increases you more and more in this, and gives you more and more good by way of this, and allow you to distribute more and more good to our people by way of it. Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you so very much. I appreciate your words and your encouragement, and that is what it's all about, is edifying the God within us all, because we all are walking with God within us. Will you come back to talk more, because there's just so much. I want to have like a couple of sessions with you, because I feel that you have so much to teach with your words, with your experience. And I think there's a huge community, not just myself, but who are coming up and are looking for guidance and looking for direction. And I think that you possess access to wisdom that can be delivered. You all help me thank activist, abolitionist, poet, teacher, filmmaker, director. Amir, thank you so much for your time today. I've been honored to be in your presence. You all can find out more about him. I'll put all the links below. Stay tuned, because I will be showing the film, Laying Flowers, Setting Fires, for you to watch in its entirety. Please reshare it, promote it. Again, if we want the change to be seen, then we need to be the ones pushing the narrative forward. We do it for everybody else. We do it for everybody else. Let's do it for ourselves. I send everyone love and light. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.